lead to a feeling of entitlement that the public sector workers have about taxes. That has one congressman very mad. Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah joins us now. And Congressman, you discovered something that actually the IRS has known for years, that a lot of congressional staffers aren't paying their income tax, right?
It's insane. We have about 100,000 civilian federal workers who have serious delinquent tax debt. It accounts for about $1 billion a year in uncollected taxes. These are people who are on the federal payroll and not paying their federal taxes. And right here on Capitol Hill, between the House and the Senate, we have nearly 700 federal workers who have serious delinquent tax debt. And what I'm saying is, hey, if you're going to take the federal taxes, federal payroll, you got to pay your taxes, and if not, we're going to fire you.
This makes me furious. It really makes, when the folks in Washington already feel that they're walking a little above the rest of everybody else, when they don't pay their taxes, something that even if there's a hint of that among folks in the private sector, they'll take away your assets immediately. They get away with it year after year.
Well, the IRS is the only agency within the federal government that has the ability to fire their employees if they're not paying their taxes. I've introduced a bill that would give all agencies the ability to do that. It's not a coincidence that the fact that the IRS has the highest rate of compliance. And I think if we could do that in the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Justice, all across the board, we'd see a lot more compliance. And you're right, there's nothing more infuriating than people being paid by the taxpayers not paying their own taxes.
These are, by the way, we're looking at some of the departments that have the worst scofflaws of all. Folks who aren't paying their taxes. HUD, 4%, Veteran Affairs, 3%, it goes on. But what really infuriates me are the staffers. 678 congressional staffers, 447 House employees, 231 Senate workers. And this is across the board, by the way. It's Republicans and Democrats. This is bipartisan, right, Congressman?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care who it is. It's very basic. It's very simple. It's just common sense. If you're going to be on the federal payroll, you're going to have to pay your federal taxes. And if you're not willing to do that, then you ought to be fired. Because there are a lot of good Americans out there that would do these jobs and do them well and do the right thing and pay their taxes. So we need to get our own house in order. And it's not in order right now.
We really have become a nation divided into two segments. Those who feel they can get away with murder because they've got an inside connection. Either they're working for the government and they know someone who is, and the rest of us who have to play by much stiffer rules. That unfairness really goes against the basis of what makes America great.
It is, and that's an argument against big government. When you have government that has more power, and you see this in Western Europe all the time, it does breed corruption. It does breed the idea that they're above it all. It does lead people to believe they don't have to play by the rules that everyone else plays because they're doing such important things. And so you live in a bubble, and guess what happens?
Margaret Thatcher used to say the worst thing about taxes in England, which, again, are even more onerous than ours, if you can imagine, was that it forces people to become illegal. That is, in some way, the only way you could survive in England before Margaret Thatcher did slash a lot of the tax rates was by playing illegally. And, Congressman, it looks like we're up to that level ourselves.
Well, we're talking about $1 billion in uncollected taxes, talking about 100,000 federal workers. And by the way, these are well-compensated employees. For the first time in the history of the United States, we now have more federal employees earning $100,000 or more as their base compensation than we do earning $40,000 or less.
And we should mention, Congressman, as I'm sure you know, this is happening at exactly the same time when private sector income is declining.
Yeah. We have, in just the last 18 months, the number of federal employees earning $150,000 or more as just their base compensation has more than doubled. We went from roughly 30,000 federal employees to now over 66,000 federal employees. And then you go find that a good percentage of these employees aren't even paying their taxes. Right. And that's it's just so frustrating.
Well, Congressman, I gotta put it to you now. With Steve Forbes listening, are you in favor of the flat tax as a way to simplify our code and maybe make these scofflaws stand out even more?
Oh, you want to get this country on going in the right direction. We would listen a lot more to Steve Forbes than we would with Timothy Geithner. I mean, we are taxing ourselves to death. We're creating a lot more burden out there. So absolutely, I'd much rather follow Steve Forbes, and this country would be a lot better off.
Well, and talk about scofflaws. Tim Geithner, the man in charge of the IRS, was a scofflaw at one time. Congressman, great to see you. Steve Forbes, you'll be happy to know that it is our buy, sell, hold question of the day. The flat tax Is it a buy? Is it a sell? Or is it a hold? 369-249. Are you with Steve or against him? If you're with him, it's a buy. If you're against him, it's a sell.